Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important issues. The first is, of course, the observance of Kashmir Day tomorrow, that, of course, is observed every year in Pakistan and the world over by Kashmiris. And this is, of course, very, very important and very, very integral to what Pakistan stands for in terms of its political, moral and diplomatic support to the just aspirations of the people of Kashmir towards the right of self-determination. And this is, of course, extremely important given the current scenarios as well, which was discussed in the Corps Commanders Conference as well, chaired, of course, by the Chief of Army Staff, in which a number of issues with regards to how things have been evolving at the line of control and how things have been coming out from Indian leadership and authorities and media with reference to the linkages that allegedly have been established with Pakistan. And, of course, the Chief of Army Staff has called out these baseless allegations and said that this is something completely unfounded and is, of course, not in line with the truth at all. And in fact, is a way to divert the attention from what is going on in Kashmir in terms of the draconian laws and the kind of brutal force that is being used towards the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And this is very, very important given the fact that there is a lot of concern with regards to what are the next steps and how exactly can this very important right of self-determination can actually be established, with generations, of course, unfortunately going through the kind of changes that we've seen in the occupied valley, including, of course, demographic ones, and including the ways in which India has exercised more control and authority over the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and has violated the UN Security Council resolutions in this regard, particularly with the unilateral actions back in 2019 on August 5th. So we're going to be taking a look at the entire situation and, of course, the importance of this day and the struggle that the people of Kashmir have been part of for many decades now. Our second segment is going to be taking a look at the wave of terrorism that unfortunately continues in Pakistan, in particular in Balochistan, where we've seen a recent terrorist attack that has, of course, also resulted in the martyrdom of a number of soldiers and security personnel. And this is important, particularly in terms of how the Prime Minister of Pakistan needs to, of course, take a look at the situation and how he envisions the way forward in terms of our fight against terrorism. He went to Quetta and he spoke about the ways in which, of course, peace is integral and how national cohesion is needed in the fight against terrorism. He also visited the injured security personnel and soldiers in Balochistan and has, of course, said that there is no tolerance for any terrorist or extremist groups in the country, and that the kind of safe havens that are being provided outside of Pakistan must also end, and that Pakistan will go ahead at all costs to fight this menace and will be at the forefront in terms of safeguarding the people of the country. So we're going to be taking a look at what that means, particularly for the province, and what steps are needed in the right direction for this to materialize. That is going to be our focus in the show today. And, of course, for these discussions, we have been joined in the studios by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. And we've also been joined online by Mr. Umair Pervez, who's the General Secretary, Consortium for Asia Pacific Studies, Pakistan, and by Dr. Awais bin Wasi, who's an expert on Kashmir affairs. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the discussion today. And I'm going to start with you, Umair Saab, with reference to what you have seen in terms of the kind of development that we've seen taking place over the many, many decades since the people of Kashmir have been suffering at the hands of the occupation forces by India. And I want you to help us understand that while, of course, there has been so much time that has passed and a lot of things that have added to the suffering of the people, is there any way that we can actually take a look at the current situation and relate it to how historically it has evolved, and whether or not the struggle that still continues by the people of Kashmir has had any fruitful way forward?
Thank you very much for having me. As you have mentioned quite eloquently regarding the Kashmiri struggle for the right to self-determination, and here I would be taking a few moments when I will be reflecting back to the genesis of the issue. And as you all know, that this the genesis of the issue lies into the the partition that was done in 1947 1947 between India and Pakistan. And the India and Pakistan, after being partitioned by the Red Cliff Award, there lies the genesis of the dispute. And when it was taken to the United Nations by India itself, and then Mr. Nehru pledged that to the Kashmiris that they will be given the right to self-determination, and this would be exercised with few, within few months. But that promise never fulfilled, despite of the fact that Pakistan have always stood with the Kashmiris' right to self-determination and its principal stance to exercise, let the Kashmiris to decide for themselves what they want, and it is enshrined into the resolutions of the 1949, 1951, and subsequent resolutions. So the genesis lies into the betrayal of the India to the people of the Kashmirs and the international community that they have done since 1947, I would rather say. And when we talk about the historical stance of Pakistan, it has been very principled, and it has been on on the side of the people of the Kashmir, and it has always spoken at different forums vis-a-vis Kashmiri's right to self-determination. And where here I recall the indigenous struggle that was being made by the people of Kashmir, not only in 1947 but after that as well. And due to that indigenous struggle, they liberated the area of Azad Kashmir and also the Gilgit-Baltistan. But unfortunately, when United Nations intervened, and then when it pledged that the people of the Kashmir would be given the right to self-determination, the struggle faced debacles in sense of their, the resistance, that armed resistance that was initiated by the indigenous people. But over the period of the time, it has evolved into a political movement, and this political movement takes time. And when you talk about that, have we been able to been succeeded in some respect vis-a-vis Kashmiri's right to self-determination? I would rather say that despite of many setbacks, including the 5th of August 2019's unilateral steps by the India, still Kashmir's, the Kashmiri's cause is alive at international forums. UN cannot evade its responsibility, nor the international community, which has pledged the Kashmiris their right to self-determination. And when we talk about the movements of the self-determination, though it be in Algeria, though it be in some other part of the world like Ireland, if we study deeply into the subject, we come to know that if right of self-determination is not achieved immediately, but it is achieved definitely at the end. And we take the look at the historical perspective, we see that there are the right to self-determination movement are they are for a longer period of the time. It can also take centuries. I'm not saying that Kashmiri's right to self-determination may go so long to achieve their goal, but we should be prepared mentally. We should be prepared in many other respects as far as the right to self-determination movement is concerned. And Kashmiris have not given up. Their will is very strong, and it has the resolve and the resilience that they have showed over last 75 years. It is commendable, and it is a way forward. We don't have any other option except to resist the occupation. And specifically after 2014, the Hindutva agenda that the BJP has tried to manifest in different ways, including the settler colonialism project that they have copied from Israel, and they have used brutal force and killed and martyred 100,000 and above Kashmiris. Still, the resolve of Kashmiris is there, and we are and at this moment when we are commemorating the Kashmiri's Kashmir Solidarity Day of Kashmir, a message of hope is must. And I see when we talk to the youth of the Kashmiris, they were somehow, they definitely felt some hopelessness immediately after 2019's unilateral step by India. But you see that there has been a surge into the indigenous struggle movement recently in occupied Kashmir, and the people of Kashmir have come stronger. They have come even in a better way, and there are different ways. There are different forums in which they have manifested their will that they will never ever accept the occupation of the India, and they stand by their right to self-determination, and they will be giving any sacrifice. They are willing to give any sacrifice to attain their right to self-determination. So a message of hope at this day is important.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Wes, I want your take on this as well, because of course so many different generations have actually been involved in this struggle. And while we talk about the many efforts that have of course gone forward, with of course the international community being more and more apprised, particularly by Pakistan's efforts in this regard as well, and talking about these issues at the highest fora, I still of course want to understand in terms of what we've seen back in 2019, what we've seen continue without consequence and impunity by the Indian occupation forces, something that of course while we stand in 2025 is still going on. And because of that, I want your take on whether or not you have any hope or any sort of positive direction from bodies like the UN, from the fact that there are UN Security Council resolutions, from the international community in general, or from even countries and states that can actually talk about these issues. Because at the end of the day, while of course there might be more rhetoric and more lip service, on ground the situation remains unchanged, in fact probably worsened in so many ways.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to discuss, the issues which are related to Kashmir. As you have asked in the question about the hope that we can see in international community, especially the world powers, it's very unfortunate that the geopolitical considerations and the other political imperatives, they are shaping their policies, and the issue of human rights and the internationally recognized dimension of Kashmir dispute, that unfortunately has been eclipsed. Though it does exist on United Nations agenda under India-Pakistan question, and the passage of time, no matter how long it would take, whether it is 1 century or many centuries more, it would remain intact, because the passage of time does not invalidate the issue which has an international dimension and which has a legal locus standi. But if we see the P5 or the world powers which have adopted those resolutions, United Security Council resolutions and General Assembly resolutions, and number of statements made by Secretary General of the United Nations. So we see that there is a duality or dual standard on the part of the world powers, as well as the body that was established in 1945 to maintain peace in the world. But after 75 years, we can see that the world body is unable to materialize the pledges and the promises it has made to the world. However, if we see the realities in Kashmir, in Valley in particular, so we can see that there is a hope, because there is a lull or there is a silence after 5th of August 2019, and in some quarters it is misconstrued that perhaps people of J&K, they might have compromised. But if we see the history of Kashmir, not only since 1947, even before, Kashmiris have never accepted any foreign occupation. And whenever we see such kind of lull, such kind of silence after some time, we will see that there is a massive uprising and massive resistance that broke out. For example, if you see in 1987, when elections were massively rigged, after 2 years, there was a massive uprising and resistance in the valley that we witnessed. Similarly, in since 1997, when composite dialogue process started, and especially after 2004, when there was this 8-point dialogue process started. So in some quarters, it was perceived that perhaps people of Jammu and Kashmir, they might have compromised. But later on in 2008, after Amarnath Shrine Board agitation, there was a local intifada, the indigenous peaceful movement that broke out, and it continued till 2016. And after that, there was again, we see a kind of silence, but that cannot be interpreted as a kind of compromise or as a kind of modus vivendi on the part of Kashmiris. Kashmiris, they are, committed to, their right to self-determination and to extricate their region as well as their right to self-determination from Indian clutches and Indian occupation, no matter how strong their military or paramilitary occupation framework will be, their resentment, their resilience, and their resistance not only will remain intact, but it will intensify with the passage of time.
Absolutely, and we of course hope that, and we really hope that the suffering eases while of course their morale continues to rise. And Faisal, this is important in terms of Pakistan as well and the kind of efforts that we put in forward. We have extended our support, we've talked about this on different platforms, but what of course is needed is also the way forward in terms of how that can actually impact the people of Kashmir. And there is of course a lot of allegations that also come in from the Indian side towards Pakistan and alleged involvement in terms of terrorist activities, outrightly even calling a lot of those linkages between the just freedom struggle of the people of Kashmir with terrorists, and of course that coming in from Pakistan. And this of course something that comes in from a country with state-sponsored terrorism. And so I want your take in terms of what has been discussed in the Corps Commanders Conference as well by the Chief of Army Staff about these baseless allegations and what Pakistan needs to respond to that.
Yes, and obviously when we talk about allegations which keep on obviously Indians, they keep on hurling on us, obviously on Pakistan, that Pakistan is the one that is actually tunneling all of the terrorists inside Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Very recently we saw one of the statements coming out from there of Chief of the Army Staff of Indian military. And of course what he was implying is that 60% of the terrorists who were active in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they were Pakistanis, and rest they were the locals. I mean, I would completely disagree. In this context, I would say that they were all Pakistanis. Why I say this? Because we should never be forget that Sayyid Ali Gilani marhum, whenever he used to obviously speak to the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, he always used to say that hum Pakistani hai, Pakistan hamara hai. We are Pakistanis and Pakistan belongs to us. So every Kashmiri, be it in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or this side, all of them, they call themselves, they consider themselves Pakistanis equally as they consider themselves Jammuites or Kashmiris. So to me, I think it was all of them who are part of this struggle in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir against the rogue military of India. They are all Pakistanis and they are all Kashmiris at the same time. At this hour, Sana, the urgent requirement is to, of course, highlight another issue which is happening in India, in today's India. I mean, last week's news, we shouldn't be forgetting this, that in Rajodi, there was this village in which, of course, 17 people from the same family, an extended family, they actually got killed by drinking water, and after drinking the water which was contaminated by the Indian military, it shows that Indian military is actually heading towards another phase of its genocide, which they are applying on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They are following the Zionist ideology. Their Hindutva ideology is actually applying the biological use of biological weapons inside Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, in which we saw that the chemicals which are used inside the pesticide control and all of these, they are using them chemicals to actually contaminate the water which later on Kashmiris they drink, and they obviously suffer and they die. And this has been the recent news of last week, which is still going on. And guess what happens after people are getting to the hospitals? Even the hospitals, they don't have the adequate facilities, and later on, of course, what they start doing is they start sort of experimenting on them people, and so many people they lost their lives. Eventually, on the protests of the international media, and when international media, of course, started reporting it, that's when they brought in a medical team from New Delhi that actually started curing them and started obviously treating them. I think this issue must be highlighted on a larger scale at United Nations, and Pakistan as well as the Kashmiri movement, the resistance movement, all of them, they should seek a probe into it. And probe by whom? Obviously, we know that there is an organization called Doctors Beyond Borders. I think we need to, of course, seek their assistance in Kashmir, because in today's Kashmir, biological weapons are being used to, of course, disturb the demographics. We already know that after the abrogation of 370 and 35A articles, we have been seeing the tendency of Indian rogue military to, of course, force people to flee Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, so that they can settle more people from the Indian side into Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, to disturb the demographics and to show it to the world that here we have Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where everyone wants to stay with India, and when their goals related to demographic changes they are completed, that's when they want to go for the plebiscite. Right now, of course, Pakistan needs to highlight it, and the organizations related to Kashmir freedom, they need to highlight it. And one aspect it needs to be highlighted more and more, and that is of the use of biological weapons, which is being carried out in Indian illegal occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And this aspect, of course, once it is highlighted more and more, I am pretty much sure that it would garner the support in the world, it would garner the attention from throughout the world. And as Dr. Awais earlier rightly highlighted, that there are geostrategic goals that are to be scored by the Western world. That is why they are standing with today's rogue India, standing with today's Hindutva India. And once all of these aspects they are rightly highlighted, I'm pretty much sure the saner world in the Western world, they will be, of course, getting into it and probing whatever's going on in that.
Right. And Farrukh, I want your take on whether that will actually happen, because while, of course, these steps are taken, of course, the struggle is there and these steps are taken by Pakistan and we have our own responses. At the end of the day, when we take a look at a larger community or a larger body responding in any certain way, that doesn't seem to happen. So with reference to our own relationship with India or our own relationship with this matter, what really then is the option for Pakistan or the way forward for Pakistan regarding this particular issue, and actually really helping the situation and really, of course, resolving this matter in the interest of the people of Kashmir?
Right, Slara, thank you very much for the question. I think on the eve of Kashmir Solidarity Day, let us extend our unwavering support to our Kashmiri brethren. Hats off to them. They have actually sacrificed over generations, and yet the desire for freedom burns bright. So one has to recognize that first of all. Look at what Modi government has been doing, Sana. Since they took over, they used pellet guns to blind kids, and we have seen horrible pictures of that. After that, once Article 370 and 35A, and the later one is more important because 35A ensured that outsiders cannot change the demography of Kashmir or Jammu and Kashmir. But after that, we saw that they handed out domiciles to outsiders as well, especially families who had actually in 1947 left Pakistan and went there. So with that, they actually wanted to change the demography of the region as well. But what has happened? So far, not only in Kashmir, Indian illegally occupied Kashmir, the desire for freedom has continued unabated. But on the other side, in Jammu also, they seem to have actually unhinged the local population, because that is where they, because Modi ji and his party wanted support for his political party, they have been actually sending the new domiciled people there. And because of that, local insecurities have also worked up. Remember, Sana, that since 1947, 1948, the demand for Kashmiri freedom is linked with demand for plebiscite, right? And in that context, you have to look at Kashmir as a single entity. That means that because Owen Dixon's plan of regional plebiscites was never actually adopted, because of that, Jammu is also ours. And Ladakh is also ours, Kargil is also ours. So in Jammu, if something bad is happening to Hindus of Jammu, that is also something that must sadden us. And let us also extend our solidarity to them, because they are also ours. Now, because of that, Modi government has been trying whatever it could, but you remember that picture that came out in which a child is sitting atop the dead body of his grandfather.
Yeah.
And that heart-rending picture must have shaken the consciousness of the world. After that also, because Faisal was talking about use of chemical weapons, Pakistan actually put out, dossiers on the matter also, and it was like catered to all the capitals in the world. So the fact is that it is not that the world is unable to see what is happening in Kashmir. It is not that we are lacking in any aspect at all. What is happening, Sana, at this moment is that the world does not, because of the geostrategic or the richness of Indian state, the world does not want to see it. What do you do when that happens? When the oppressors are at their peak, and when they seem to be at an advantageous position. Let me actually ironically quote, one of the poems, not quote actually, refer to a poem of Gandhiji that was Mask of Anarchy by P.B. Shelley. And the story goes such that if the oppressor comes and attacks you, just stay your ground and keep taking it until he gets tired and walks away, and then you get your freedom. So at this moment, what is needed for our Kashmiri brethren is to stay strong, and then Pakistan can do whatever it can. But remember that while India has a lot of holding power, it is not infinite. And now there are changes in the global order as well. President Donald Trump, who once actually stated on record that Narendra Modi, no one less, had asked him behind scenes to actually help him resolve the issue of Kashmir. So he is back in power. And on the other side, we have seen that India is really trying very hard to placate President Donald Trump. And then next week, Prime Minister Modi is going to Washington, D.C. as well, after having accepted 18,000 or so people who have been returned. So I think that this is also an opportunity. Let us hope that President Trump can also, further double down on this idea, because in public, then Indian state kept on saying that it is not possible. You have to use all the aspects, Sana. Remember, Western democracies are democracies. You can educate the people, because then if you build momentum there, they can actually carry the governments also. And then also diplomatic efforts, wherever you see goodness or the intention for goodness, you can exploit that.
Right, and Umair, I need your take on this as well, particularly in terms of the people of India itself. Like, is there anything that can be done in terms of targeting them and their opinion and using that against what is going on at the moment?
Actually, we have to do nothing when the Modi is there. Modi himself is basically making the ground for the for the sympathy of the Kashmiris. Like we have seen in the recent in the times that there were segments of the Muslims who were not not vocal about Kashmir cause or what was happening in Kashmir, as discussed by the worthy panelists over the years. But after, when the Prime Minister Modi came and had his Hindutva ideology, tried to be manifested in different forms, like the Uniform Civil Code, for that matter, Article 370, that he basically, and 35A, basically he revoked from Kashmir, and not only in the Kashmir, the disputed territory, but also in the mainland, which he has with the citizenship register that that he has and his cabinet has proposed and implemented the policies. So the minorities, basically, if you call as of the Muslims, it is a significant minority, but it has been it has been treated very harshly and unconstitutionally in India. And same goes for the Sikh community. And if I and to mention, and not to forget the Christians who have been targeted very badly in the few of the recent incidents as well, that we could quote easily. So the prism through which Kashmir was being first seen by the population of the India itself was a quite different. But now when we talk, or when we see, or when we analyze the mainland's population of India, when it talks about the Kashmir, it is now having a different perspective over that. And when we talk about what we can do, we can be always be we have to just try to plead our case positively, that we have always been doing. And that is for the first of all, the thing is that we should be talking about the right to self-determination of the Kashmiris, though it be a Hindu Kashmiri, though it be a Pandit Kashmiri, any Buddhist for that matter, or a Muslim. The religion should not be our matter of concern. Rather, we should be talking about right to self-determination that was enshrined into the UN resolutions. And yes, the minorities issues, they are definitely, they are different. That is different. But certainly, as I have said earlier, that the minorities vision, or the prism, or the perspective, or the Kashmir is now changing, and you see the same voices that they have been now talking about. I could quote A.G. Nurani, who was an advocate of Supreme Court. He was a very strong supporter of that of Kashmir cause, and specifically regarding Article 370s and 35A's revocations legality. He questioned that. I would also like to quote here the Arundhati Roy, for that matter. She has been questioning that. Now
and there are such great voices, which of course is very, very important. Dr. Wes, I want your take on that as well, in terms of building on those saner voices, and whether or not that can actually have the impact that the people of Kashmir want, and can that be possible when we talk about the observance of Kashmir Day? Because at the end of the day, this is a struggle that continues every single day. But what do we hope for when we talk about the observance of Kashmir Day? I'm still unable to hear you, Dr. Awais. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yes. When it comes to people of India, so I think that some of the seminal differences that we have to make between Hinduism and Hindutva. We don't need to, use these concepts or terms interchangeably, as Hindutva is a political construct, and that has been advanced to have some, hate-filled, vitriolic agenda led by Modi. This campaign of reaching out Modi, that was started by APHC, and APHC started visiting different states of India. Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani visited, Mirbaz Umar Farrukh Sahab visited, Yasin Malik Sahab, they had also visited, though they were not, welcomed by some quarters, and they have been mistreated. But they have started approaching and reaching out to the Indian population that they should compel and they should convince Indian leadership that it is the interest for for the state of India, that they should give freedom to the people of Kashmir as pledged by their Prime Minister and their civil society activists. They have also been talking about persistently. For example, that former executive editor of Hindustan Times, Veer Singhvi, and as Umair Pervez rightly mentioned, Arundhati Rai, she has written a very groundbreaking article published in Outlook India titled as Azadi, and she was of the view that India needs Azadi from Kashmir, as Kashmir needs Azadi from India. That is very famous line that she has written in that very article. And Ajit Sai, he remained the editor of Telka. He was also of the same view. So there are some saner and prudent voices. They talked about this, Kashmiri's right to self-determination. They have endorsed it. So,
and these senior voices are, of course, very, very important for this struggle, and we hope that we can build on that. But thank you very much, Dr. Awais and Mr. Umair, for joining us and being a part of this discussion. And we, of course, hope that this just struggle goes towards the right of self-determination, which is very, very important. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate. As always, that's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.